The weak link. Dravik 7 was a jungle planet so hostile that even its own wildlife rarely slept. The canopy groaned with the weight of vines and predators. The ground pulsed with bioluminescent fungi, and every shadow whispered danger. It was not a place for the soft or the slow. That made Private Alyssa Tran stick out like a fracture in a seamless exosuit. She stood at the edge of the drop zone as the Void Scorchers disembarked, their heavy boots sinking slightly into the damp moss. 8 of the galaxy's most lethal mercenaries, reptilian war veterans, exiled insectoid assassins, and a 4-armed avian sniper with thermal vision goggles, armed with custom gear and oversized egos. They spread out quickly, securing the perimeter without a glance at her. Alyssa adjusted the straps of her pack and stepped onto the planet's surface. It smelled like copper and decay. "Stay close to the crates, mammal," rumbled Gortal, the Scorcher's unofficial leader. The hulking reptilian wore scale-pattern armor and carried a plasma repeater longer than Alyssa was tall. "Don't want you wandering off and getting eaten by leaf spiders." The others snorted, clicks and hisses forming what passed for laughter among their species. Alyssa didn't respond. She had learned on day one that silence was more powerful than arguing when you were outnumbered, outgunned, and, in their eyes, outclassed. She wasn't here because she was the best. She was here because Earth had signed the Interstellar Combat Exchange Treaty 6 months ago, and the Coalition needed diversity among troops for optics. That made her a token, a warm body to prove that humans could integrate into elite alien units. Her job was to survive long enough to prove she wasn't a liability. The drop mission was simple: escort and secure a mining convoy to Outpost Delta, 40 clicks through unexplored jungle. A straight shot by hover, but recent reports of attacks had made that risky. The convoy would move groundside under the Scorcher's protection. "Primitive planet," muttered Yexu, a 6-eyed scout who clicked her mandibles in distaste. "Everything here eats flesh. Even the trees bleed if cut wrong." Alyssa had read the mission file. Dravik 7's biosphere was classified as level red, meaning standard tactics were unreliable and local fauna were large, aggressive, and intelligent. Native species had resisted colonization efforts for decades. "Get your gear loaded, ape," snapped Rex, the avian marksman, tossing her a supply crate heavier than it looked. She caught it and heaved it into the transport without complaint. Let them talk, she thought. They don't have to like me. They just need me to keep up. Hours passed as the team moved through the jungle in formation, flanking the convoy of mining vehicles. The jungle closed in around them, thick with moisture and movement. Alyssa scanned the treetops constantly. Her training on Earth hadn't included this kind of environment, but instinct told her they weren't alone. Something was watching. The moment came when they stopped to refuel. Alyssa stood apart from the others, crouched near a large moss-covered tree, eyes narrowing. Something had moved just above the canopy. Massive, silent, far too fast for a normal creature. She opened her mouth to speak, but hesitated. "What human?" Yexus sneered. "Smell something scary?" "Thought I saw movement," Alyssa said quietly. Gortal chuckled. "Congratulations. You've noticed you're on a death planet." They laughed again. Alyssa forced herself to stay calm. Her pulse had spiked for a reason. She hadn't imagined it. As they packed up to continue the march, something high in the canopy shifted again, just out of sight. Not a blur this time. A presence. The trees hushed. Even the buzzing insects fell still. Then it was gone. The others didn't notice. Alyssa tightened her grip on her rifle. At that moment, high above, a creature crouched among twisted branches, its breath invisible, its eyes unblinking. It watched the mercenaries move below, but lingered longer on the smallest among them, the one who didn't speak but looked straight at the trees. It had seen many intruders on Dravik 7. This one was different. Into the maw. The convoy snaked through the jungle, engines growling low as foliage thrashed and hissed against the armored wheels. The Void Scorchers moved ahead in a staggered diamond formation, weapons ready, sensors sweeping, but complacent. Alyssa brought up the rear, scanning the terrain with sharper eyes than her squaw mates. She wasn't looking for motion. She was looking for patterns breaking. Shadows that didn't belong. Trees too still. The way the jungle seemed to hold its breath. Every step forward sent a twinge through her gut. She learned to trust that feeling. Stop. Alyssa hissed into her comm. Something's off. No visuals, no heat. Yexu responded, annoyed. Your instincts don't override the scanner. Human. Then the jungle exploded. Energy bolts slammed into the lead transport, flipping it with a thunderous boom. Trees splintered. Screams echoed through the calms. From the canopy and underbrush, figures surged out. Alien bandits, clad in mismatched armor and armed with disruptor rifles and netcasters. They struck fast and coordinated, a dozen strong, overwhelming the Scorchers with an ambush far too clean for local thugs. Gortao roared and charged head-on, absorbing fire with his shield. Yexu vanished into the underbrush. The squad scattered, returning fire, but the convoy was compromised in seconds. The second transport's engine went critical and erupted, sending debris raining. Alyssa dove behind a tree trunk. Her HUD flashed red. 2 Scorchers were down, 1 captured, another dragged into the jungle. Her comm crackled. Fall back, flank maneuver, regroup at Point Echo. Gortao barked. She turned to comply, and froze as one of the mercs turned on her. Zex, the shapeshifter, shifted mid-run, his limbs lengthening, armor reconfiguring. He leveled a coil rifle at her. Traitor. Alyssa rolled as the first shot missed, bark exploding beside her head. She ducked low and bolted through the undergrowth, weaving through roots and alien ferns. Another bolt scorched her sleeve. She didn't stop running. The jungle swallowed her. Alyssa didn't stop until she was a kilometer from the ambush site, gasping behind a fallen log covered in glowing moss. Her hands shook, her chest burned, but she wasn't panicking. She knew panic. This was focus. Survive. Regroup. Reassess. The jungle was louder here. Chirps, shrieks, distant roars. Somewhere behind her, bandits still pursued. Not far. She needed high ground, concealment, intel. Alyssa climbed a gnarled tree and surveyed the jungle canopy. The Scorchers were fractured, fighting pockets of enemies. Communications were jammed. Alone. Hunted, but not unprepared. She pulled her field knife and began setting primitive traps. Trip vines, deadfalls, spike pits masked with ferns. Earth techniques adapted to alien terrain. She had no drones, no backup, and limited ammo. She had to slow them down. And then, something changed. A stillness crept over the jungle. Even the birds stopped. Her skin prickled. Branches shifted just beyond her traps, then silence. A screech, brief and wet, echoed through the trees. Alyssa pressed her back to a trunk, weapon raised. She heard boots, a bandit running fast, blindly. He never reached her. He vanished into the shadows with a gurgled scream. Something had pulled him up into the trees. No blaster fire. No struggle. Just gone. Another scream. Then another. Panic rippled through the enemy ranks. Alyssa crouched lower. Her trap line hadn't even been triggered. Whatever was hunting them was faster than anything she'd seen. She caught a glimpse, just a shape. Massive. It moved like liquid shadow. No noise. No wasted movement. Clawed limbs. Cold, unblinking eyes. It passed within 20 feet of her and didn't attack. It looked right at her and moved on. Elsewhere, a bandit comm officer barked into his wrist link, his voice tight with fear. We've got a Class Alpha native loose. This isn't a recon op. It's a damn culling ground. No one said anything about apex predators, another shouted. I told you this planet was cursed. Alyssa lay in the crook of the tree for hours, unmoving. The bandits were being picked off one by one, some by her traps, others by something far worse. Something ancient, predatory. She didn't know why it spared her. Not yet, but as dawn rose and the screams faded into silence, she realized one thing clearly. She was no longer the most dangerous thing in this jungle, but she was the only one it hadn't killed. And that meant something. The apex hunter. Dawn broke over Dravik, 7 in pale green light, filtered through the dense canopy like some alien cathedral. Mist clung to the ground, hiding the blood spatters and broken bodies from the night before. Alyssa moved silently, hugging the undergrowth, her weapon lowered. The jungle was calm, but not safe. The bandits were gone, or at least what remained of them. She had seen enough during her cautious sweep: shredded gear, crushed helmets, blood trails leading upward, not out. Something had hunted them with surgical precision, and somehow spared her. She didn't believe in luck. She believed in patterns, behavior, intent. The creature had watched her. That wasn't random. It hadn't seen her as prey. She needed to understand why. She reached a shallow ravine filled with tangled roots and bioluminescent mushrooms. Crouching, she checked one of her snares. A small scavenger had been caught. Mammalian, six-legged, its neck snapped clean. No human trap could have done that so cleanly, she thought. Then she noticed something more chilling. The carcass had been placed back in the snare, as if returned. Alyssa's breath caught. This wasn't just a predator. It was intelligent. She wasn't being hunted anymore. She was being studied. Later that afternoon, while foraging edible fungus and hydrating from her purifier pouch, Alyssa heard it again, the heavy, calculated footfalls. Not close, not charging, tracking. She didn't run. Instead, she crouched low and made herself small, unthreatening, just as she would when observing dangerous wildlife on Earth. Predators didn't always respond to strength. Sometimes they respected stillness, presence. Movement came from behind. Slow, deliberate. A massive form stepped through the foliage. It stood twice her height, hunched slightly forward. Its body was covered in dark, chitinous plates, modeled to match the jungle. Limbs long and muscled, claws curved and clean. Its eyes, 4 of them, were black and deep, reflecting her like twin obsidian mirrors. It didn't roar. It didn't pounce. It watched. Alyssa didn't move. Her heart thundered in her ears, but her breathing remained steady. She didn't lift her weapon, didn't flinch. She simply watched back. After a long, frozen moment, the creature blinked once and turned away. It walked past her, vanishing into the jungle like smoke. Hours passed. She followed, at a distance, quiet, careful. It wasn't leading her. It simply didn't care that she was there. The trail led to a ridge overlooking a clearing. Beneath them lay an old alien ruin, moss-covered stone structures, clearly pre-galactic. Nature had reclaimed most of it, but in the center stood a large flat stone, stained dark. A kill site. She watched from cover as the creature returned with a large, bleeding beast draped across its back, easily 500 kilos. With precision, it placed the body on the stone, then stepped back. It waited. Minutes passed. From the forest edge, smaller creatures emerged. 2-legged scavengers with primitive spears and leaf-woven cloaks. They bowed toward the predator and began stripping the carcass, taking only specific organs and bones. Alyssa's mind spun. It's not a monster. It was part of an ecosystem, possibly even a deity to the local sentience. Apex not just by biology, but by culture. Alyssa realized she was no longer observing an animal. This was something more, a keystone intelligence, a jungle god, and somehow it had accepted her presence. As the scavengers left and night fell again, Alyssa retreated to a high perch in the trees. She patched together her calm, only partial signal, enough to hear snippets from scorchers. Gortal wounded, regrouping, Zex missing. They were alive. She had to get to them, but she wasn't sure who'd be hunting whom anymore. That night, she didn't light a fire. She ate cold rations and watched the jungle shift in the moonlight. The apex hunter returned only once. It passed near her perch, pausing to glance up at her, as if checking she hadn't fallen behind. Then moved on. No words, no gesture, just recognition. And for the first time since the ambush, Alyssa felt something strange in her chest. Not fear. Respect. Predators packed. The jungle opened around the ruined convoy like a throat about to swallow. Smoke rose from what remained of the transports. Chunks of metal, scattered limbs, and scorched foliage marked the battlefield. Alyssa crouched at the tree-line, scanning through the scope of her rifle. The void scorchers had regrouped, what was left of them. Gortal leaned against a boulder, his armor cracked, one arm limp. Yexu was wounded, antenna gone, legs twitching with stress spasms. Rex stood watch, weapon drawn, eyes sharp. Zex, the shapeshifter and traitor, was there too, pacing near a captured bandit, flanked by mercenaries she didn't recognize. Bandits and mercs together. That didn't make sense. Unless it was never about the convoy. Alyssa's eyes narrowed. They'd been baiting something. Not her. Not the cargo. The apex. She moved like smoke between shadows, circling wide until she had the high ground above the clearing. From here, she heard the voices more clearly through the jamming static. Ran models off that DNA shard. Native genomes off the charts, Zex hissed. Built for warfare. The Coalition will pay millions for a live sample. You think it'll just walk into a trap again? Another asked. It's watching us. It always watches, Zex replied. We bleed out the survivors. Make noise. It'll come. It's territorial. He turned toward a makeshift cage. Inside it, a young native, smaller than the scavengers Alyssa had seen with the apex, bruised and bound. Bait. Her stomach twisted. They're using a child to lure it. It wasn't just poaching. It was provocation. A low vibration passed through the earth. The wind stilled. Alyssa knew what that meant. It was here. She had a choice. Run, hide, or stand. She took a deep breath, flicked her rifle to full charge, and broke cover. She walked directly into the clearing. Weapons swiveled. Shouts echoed. It's the human. Tran. Gortal shouted hoarsely. What the hell are you doing? Zex raised his rifle. Drop your weapon. You're outnumbered. Alyssa didn't drop it. Instead, she looked straight at the cage. I know what you're doing, she said, voice calm. It's not going to work. That thing doesn't fall for traps. It studies them. Zex snarled. And yet here you are. You've underestimated it, Alyssa said. And me. Then the jungle exploded. Not in fire. In motion. The apex hunter landed like a meteor, claws first, crushing one of the bandits under its weight. It roared, short, sharp, not fury. Judgment. Panic tore through the camp. Alyssa moved with it. She fired once, straight into the lock on the cage. The young native burst free and sprinted for the treeline. The apex pivoted, saw, understood. Spared her again. Zex fired a disruptor bolt. The apex dodged, claws flashing, impaling two enemies in a blur. Alyssa ducked behind wreckage, picked off two fleeing mercs, then moved toward Gortal, who stared at the chaos in awe. What is that thing? He rasped. Protector. Executioner. I think it decides. Gortal chuckled weakly. Figures the human's the one it doesn't kill. Behind them, Zex screamed. He tried to shift, limbs warping, too late. The apex's claws came down. Silence followed. Later, as the smoke cleared and the survivors regrouped, the apex stood in the middle of the field. Blood dripped from its forearms. It looked to Alyssa. She stepped forward. It didn't attack. It didn't run. It tilted its head as if acknowledging a peer. Then it turned and vanished into the trees, the young native following behind. No war cry, no claim, just a silent pact. 3 days later, Alyssa stood before a coalition tribunal. The surviving Scorchers backed her report. Bandit collusion, internal betrayal, native life forms showing signs of intelligence and protective social structure. They want to study it, Gortal grunted after the hearing. Bring it in. Cage it. They'll fail, Alyssa replied. They don't understand it. He looked at her for a long time. But you do. No, she said. But it understands me. He nodded slowly. You're not the recruit anymore. No, she agreed. I think it chose you. She said nothing, but she remembered that final glance. Not prey, not threat, equal.